Good evening. Welcome to our second roundtable at DHS for summer of 2023. I think we're going to have some interesting things today to share with you. First of all, we can easily be found on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook Live. Stay connected with us. Rumble, Gab, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. At Diverse Health. We have virtual appointments available. That's pretty easy to get a hold of us. Now, after what just happened with our children, I'd like to encourage you to help your kids make up for the lost time that they had losing their social skills. I get great results sending my kids to the Dale Carnegie for Kids show, because the kids learn to have personality that they've lost today. That's one of the greatest business classes you can send your children to, and I highly recommend that to pick up for lost time. Now, a lot has happened since the last time we got together. It seems like the world is starting to spin fast enough that the wheels are going to come off eventually, and it's not going to stop till that happens. Healthcare, sadly, has let us down. The church has let us down. Our schools, our jobs, Hollywood, sports figures. And now I'm seeing a level of fatigue in people that I never even understood before, because I can't believe how fatigued everybody is, because the stress is taking its toll on everybody. You have to be running on all cylinders today, because if you're not, you're going to get stuck. Now, if you folks remember my lecture on the exploding autoimmune epidemic, Judith Berry Baker has found me on Twitter, and she says she's got some incredible information for me that she wants to talk about personally, and I might be able to find her this summer, and I'm looking forward to talking to you after I hopefully can get a hold of her, but that's a story for another time, because we'd all like to stay alive. This one across Twitter. This gal calls me from the Bahamas. She breaks her shoulder, and I told her, you have to have your shoulder fixed. This is what it looked like. She said, I'm not going to do this. I just want whatever supplements you can put me on. March to May, there's her shoulder, how it healed. Now, one of my patients in America broke his shoulder, and that's what his looks like after it was done here. Now, I don't know which shoulder you'd like to own, but in the olden days, they used to cast stuff, and we helped heal this. It's perfect. It's just something to think about. It's fun to sit at Twitter, watch this go across, and it's my story. Why am I talking about this today? This was yesterday in the paper. How did we get here? This is May 4th. A hospital nurse thought she'd do some people a favor, so she killed 20 coronavirus patients just to help them out. How did we get here? What kind of crazy things are happening right now? There's a Netflix special right now about serial killers and doctors. It's disgusting. Now that we've all been successfully protected by the medical establishment, I'm driving back and forth to work, and all they talk about is all the different cancers that you might have now. It's everywhere. If you got bone cancer, call us. If you got myeloma, call us. If you got leukemia, call us. Whatever you got, we're prepared for the cancer that you now have expressed in your body that you didn't have before. It's crazy. It's everywhere. My staff wondered what this was. The blast from the past. How crazy did we let this whole situation get? That's absolutely nonsense. If you got tangled up in that lung mess, I wanted to share a lung cocktail with you. You want to overhaul your lungs? NAC you heard a lot about during the epidemic. Astragalus and Pneumozyme, 3 a day, put 1 year into it, and you can really help regenerate your lungs. Your kid plays out in the sand for a half an hour. That's what his hand looks like. 1/2 an hour, that's the germs that you can get on a Petri dish. Now, either A, you can wash your hands, or you can end up with maybe that special Pfizer smile. I think I'd rather just have the Pfizer smile, and I thought that was a great way to present that. Quest Labs, like you know, set up an office here. It's been fantastic. They do all the billing. We have nothing to do with it, and you have a chance to actually have your own blood work ran. These are the most popular profiles that are being run at DHS right now, and Dr. Jeff and Dr. Gill will talk about some of those things. I've been through about 3 of these right now. I want to go through more of these because as I get older, I'm trying to hold my health together because you're going to understand why in a couple minutes. Things are getting scary now because I'm losing far too many friends and acquaintances, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, what happened in the last couple years? Let's talk about this. This is my life. Now, in my life, my mom was paddled at the hospital. They took her out at 83. My dad died at 90, my uncle at 95, my aunt at 99. My grandma's made it to 90. I called my wife's mother. I said, how old did everybody live? 82 and 83. Now, this is my life right now. The top one is my chiropractic friend. He had 5 cancers, that died at 60, lymphoma 3 times, pancreatic cancer twice. He had a chronic Epstein-Barr virus that they missed. I lost my other friend with lymphoma at 60. There's my hockey buddy. We lost him at 45. They wanted to do I found some interesting symptoms on this man, and they wanted to do a biopsy on his brain the 1st of December. The 1st of December. I said, you know, you're 45. How about if we do it at the end of January? Let's do it after Christmas. Oh, they said, no, you can do it right now because there's only a 1% chance that anything's going to happen. Only 1%. You know these people well. So he gets his brain biopsy, goes straight to hospice, and he's got a big bandage on his head, and I went to visit him, and he said, well, Doc, I guess I'm the lucky one. I'm the 1%. I watched him basically die. If they'd have done it, they'd have ruined their Christmas. We hold him off at least till after Christmas, and at least he had one last Christmas. I've lost a good non-drinking, non-smoking friend to bile duct cancer recently. I've lost another friend to a stroke at 65. This is a chiropractor that had Lou Gehrig's disease. He was in the Air Force. They gave him his shots twice because they missed it. They lost his record, so he got it a second time. For all you folks that grew up around Detroit, there's the rock and roll band Mariner. There's my friend Bobby. He died at 45 of Lou Gehrig's disease. I lost my next door neighbor, Scott and Ricky. Scott went down at 58. I lost Jerry at 55. Another one at lung cancer. Pancreatic cancer, the guy that changed next to me in hockey, and he looked exactly like me. He looked like this, and he died in about 8 weeks with pancreatic cancer, and I asked him, John, how do you think you got this? I said, I got to know. He said, I know you're going to say it's from the jab. I said, I'm not going to say anything, John, at this time because there's no sense in arguing. Now, we lost the biotics rep with a cerebral hemorrhage at 56. Is this picture there? I can't tell you how many anal cancers have been through my world and your world. It's everywhere. Remember, exit only. Bladder cancer. Watch the church lady go down with bladder cancer, no smoking, no drinking, get eaten away in about 3 months. This is what my life's like. And in the last couple years, life expectancy dropped to 76. That's a catastrophe. The fact that nobody's looking into that, this is 2020. We lost 4 years in the last 3 years. This is major, major stuff. There should be a congressional inquiry into that, but they don't want to know the answer. Harry, there's the biotics rep, and people are going to say, well, why did he die? It's pretty simple. Now that he's gone, this is second generation money. How many first generation, watch the first generation, how many people that had kids and you gave money to your kids, how did it work out for most of them? Half of them couldn't handle it, and you've lost family members because A, they couldn't handle being rich. Sometimes when you get too much money, and he wasn't in good shape, and we always complained about his shape, he tried to give us advice, for Pete's sake, you got to get in better shape, Harry. And he died of a cerebral hemorrhage, and they found him in bed at 56. This is an interesting patient because this is the famous Dick Lane. He's a senior Olympian. There's an interesting history with him playing basketball. He's a tough guy at this age. Listen to this special story because it's ridiculous. Go for it. This is an Olympian.
No, it's senior.
This is the famous Dick Lane, the senior Olympian, who plays aggressive basketball till what age?
90.
Till 90. Now, he had a heart attack, and he had an interesting experience with the doctor. He asked the doctor, why did he have a heart attack? And the doctor said,
Cholesterol.
his cholesterol is perfect. He said, I don't have cholesterol problems. Then he said, well, what was his next answer? You eat too much meat.
No, I told him I was vegetarian for the last 60 years and
Okay.
off sugar and off dairy. Did everything I could to eliminate cholesterol and couldn't understand why it hit me.
So what did he say the reason was?
Cholesterol.
The cholesterol. So here's his test. Nobody that's watching this has this many greens on his test. This is spectacular. You can't blame it on this. He has a fantastic blood test. He's eating good for his body style. There is his heart attack. His lipoprotein A is highlighted in red. The guy has no clue what to do with this. He's taking all the medications for it and hasn't budged it because they don't understand it. So finding an answer that you're carrying my genetic problem at 93, now we're turning everything around. Now he's got a chance at getting healthier, even though we're going to get him to 100.
I'd like to go to 120.
120. But that's what it's like to ask your doctor what's wrong, and they can't answer the problem. He had to find out at a chiropractor's office why he had a heart attack.
Amen.
Now, this guy, I've not seen him. He's got an appointment with his cardiologist, and he's got some words for the cardiologist. He said, look, this is my blood test. You have a blood test this good. This is better than most of the blood tests on the people. And in the year 2023, the doctor looked right past that little red thing and said, that has nothing to do with it. Folks, you got to wake up because they've been getting away with this way too long. Me. Now, people think I'm healthy as I've cut my schedule back because this is what I battle with, and you folks don't understand how much money, time, and effort I spend on my health because I'm falling apart because the pediatrician had his way with me the first 12, 13 years of my life and made about as much of a mess as he could. There's some genetic issues, LDL, triglycerides, homocysteine, lipoprotein A, high cortisol, gout, low T, alkaline pH, chronic strep, an infected bone graft, thanks doctors, I appreciate it, ruptured disc, shingles, COVID positive naturally, and I've had 3 significant hockey injuries that helped get me out of that sport. But this is the groove I have to stay in because we have no place to go right now. The medical industry has committed suicide in front of us. You better take care of yourself the best you can. There's doctors like us around the country, and I want you to know, coming into this office, if you've seen me too long, you can easily get a second opinion from Dr. Jeff. You can see Dr. Gill. Gill's patients can schedule a doctor transfer if you'd like a new look at something. We all share patients. I will not be here as much. These guys have decades of experience. I trust them with my health. So if you want a fresh look, it's easy to do that. Now here's my number. I have high cortisol. Unless I get out of here, this cortisol is going to kill me. I can't run stress for 42 years or I'm going to end up with some disease process like my friends, and I don't want to end up like that. Now, the first vitamin in the history of the world was Catalin. It came out in 1929, and that's the first bottle. Now, to talk about this, I started back in 1981. Vitamins have been out about 93 years. The first vitamin was in 29, about 93 years. I have been blessed to be involved with this movement 46 of 93 years. I feel old to say half of the time that vitamins were available to the public, I've been in practice using them, and I'm humbled to be part of this movement. And I want you to know, we don't know anything about this. You've watched all these results that you've seen. We are amateurs because it's a practice. Can you imagine what these herbs and supplements are going to be doing in 20 years, 100 years? We're going to go back to this because the pharmaceutical industry choked itself off. So the first vitamin is still the benchmark in the industry. It stood the test of time. This is a very interesting case. This is why I want to share exactly this case with you. This guy comes in, he's 51 years old, he's got all these lymph nodes swollen in his neck. Lymph nodes that stick up. 10 years ago, they tell him he's got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. They do chemo and radiation. When he's done, he felt great through the chemo and radiation. When he was done, they said, "You're cured." He still had all the lymph nodes swollen in his neck, exactly the same. So 10 years later, one of his employees sends him to me. He's supposed to be through with his cancer. Well, folks, you better be paying attention. This is everywhere. This is what his blood panel looked like. EBV, EBV, herpes 6, herpes 1, and herpes 2. His whole head is full of viral infection, and his lymph nodes are swollen. He's on a very complex supplement protocol. All the lymph nodes are shrinking, and what they sold him was cancer. And then he walked away and said, "Oh, you're fine now, don't worry about it." This is everywhere, and you got to catch that line between the changing and still when it's in a viral state. Now, there's another one coming up.
All right, this next case is a perfect example of why Dr. Jeff and I have designed blood work and brought it into the office here. Complex viral cases are absolutely everywhere, everywhere. And did we switch that? Perfect. Are everywhere. And here's the thing. This is a patient, 71-year-old male, presents with post-COVID symptoms that had been diagnosed in Europe. Now, when he came home, he was COVID-free. Now, when he came in the office, he said to me, a few weeks later, he said, "I don't feel right. Something doesn't feel right." He was a little bit pale, a little lethargic, but he just didn't feel right. Now, before we get in the thick of that, I'm just going to get a little bit technical. All viruses, not just the weaponized virus, will do something to your body. Viruses, when they're active in your body, will produce nagalase. What nagalase enzyme will do is shut down the vitamin D and shut down some of the proteins to the immune system. It literally puts you in an immune suppressive state. Now, if you look at this up here, we ran some blood work on him, and what we ran is his CD4, and we ran his CD8, and we ran his ratio. And you'll see his CD4 was low, you'll see the CD8 was high, and then you'll look down, you'll see his CD4 to CD8 ratio was 0.44, low. That's an absolute direct look at what it would look like if you saw an AIDS patient's blood work. So he said, "I don't feel well." Whether it was that virus or another one, I don't feel well. We ran this test, which is white blood cells in the serum blood, and we found he's got a pattern very similar to an AIDS patient. So what I did is I put him on the IAG, the dysmucine granules, and Immune Plus, which is a huge home run to boosting up the immune system. Now, as of April 2023, you'll see that his numbers are starting to come up. He's starting to bring these numbers up. Now, those are slow. They haven't come up quite a bit yet, but you have to remember, he's in an immunosuppressed state. What this means, this is a guy here that if he gets a common cold, it could easily go into pneumonia, the flu, take him out. That's how serious it can be when you have a CD4 to CD8 ratio that's that low. But we're already getting the changes, and the bigger thing is the patient is changing. He feels better, his color's coming back, he's slowly starting to get his immune system back online. And it's been a perfect case so far. Randy?
We're trying to show you that we're all so unique and individual. Finding your groove is the only way you're going to survive today, because the medical community has got to start a whole different way. Once this collapse happens, we're not going to be able to keep this nonsense up. Watch this. This is real simple. Look at these two. She came in. Now, what's the difference between these two? Here's 1 month later. Go back. Look at her skin. Look at his skin. They eat the same. She's got no gallbladder. Simple. You know what it's like to live a life not digesting your fats ever? That's what it looks like. Treating the no gallbladder, that's 30 days later. Their moods are better, their skin's better, their outlook's better, their depression's better, everything's better, her skin changes just because she's breaking her fats down. You don't realize that not breaking your fats down is one of the hugest ways to get cancer because all your membranes become very fragile. Now, I like to say, bake out the ache. I've never bought the sunscreen story when I was a kid because the first time my mom put me on it, it took me 3 days to get it off because I felt like I was covered in silly putty. I couldn't stand it. I never used it again. Then I realized my body was paying attention to my intuition. Today, 2 flax oil, 6 F tablets, that's how I can handle the sun. I don't want to look like those old dead white guys, that John McCain look. And that after you're in the sun all day, put that USF ointment on your face, you go from red to brown quick. Your body wants the sun. This is my vacation pill. If I went to the Bahamas, I'd take 6 to 8 of those a day while I was there. This is what I'm doing now to keep my skin looking healthy, and all my organs are lined like that. So people really are missing their fats and oils, and it's really a time to pay attention to because it's a big thing with cancer. This is some special stuff Jeff's doing.
This panel is part of our gut health panel, and this is something that I will compare the main 7 sensitivities to through the IgE forms, the IgG, as well as running the celiac panel with patients. This was a 39-year-old female with abdominal pain, digestive issues, painful bloating, nausea, diarrhea, constipation. She has some acid reflux issues as well as infertility problems with some issues with lower progesterone that may have been a culprit as far as that infertility goes. And what we found was interesting is the IgE form of gluten was perfectly fine. The IgG was 2.4, which really isn't that high, not really indicative of cutting it out, but on our celiac part of the panel, it was elevated enough for me to say, hey, you know what, let's cut it out. And once we cut it out with her, a lot of GI issues resolved on its own. She was able to get pregnant again, and now we're hoping that things are going well to help maintain her progesterone levels as well too, because a lot of this gut inflammation will raise cortisol levels and kind of throw hormones as well, throw them around as well. And I've had some other patients running these similar panels with the gut stuff, and able to lose a lot of weight just cutting out these main sensitivities because getting that gut inflammation down lowers that cortisol and helps out with the weight loss there.
This gentleman called the office on Friday, how long ago?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. We had left. He was nauseous, vomiting, and throwing up. This is very special. This is happening to lots of you, and you don't see it coming. Listen to this. How well do you really eat? Well, this young man went to the hospital. How sick were you? I want you to tell exactly what happened.
I was vomiting every 20 minutes, excruciating abdominal pain to where it felt like my stomach was kind of being ripped apart. I had back spasms that lasted 3 to 4 hours at a time. I couldn't hold anything down, and that carried on for a good 36 hours straight.
So goes to the emergency room. They have no clue what to do with him. But I asked him one question. What do you eat a lot of? How many fruits and vegetables do you eat?
A lot.
He poisoned himself with fruits and vegetables, and you folks don't see this. For 42 years, I've treated a ton of people in my 5-decade career that have eaten fruits and vegetables till it put them in the hospital. Are you prepared for that? No. It's all irritated on the inside. You're not ready for this. I'm sending him for a totally different diet. His stomach will feel better in 3 days, but that's what happens when you eat against the way your body wants to eat, and a lot of people are doing this. I'll pull more people off fruits and vegetables than I have off of fat and protein. Figure that out in 42 years. Part 2. Tell the people what your diet actually is.
Yeah, so every morning I would eat an apple, a banana, and an orange. And possibly an egg, but most likely not.
How many years have you been doing this?
It's been the last 3 years.
when your body has enough, you'll get nauseous and it's pushing back on you. Pay attention when your stomach's trying to tell you something. He can't believe it was this simple. The hospital's still trying to figure out what happened to him. This is 3 days in the hospital with pancreatitis, and they noticed he had an enlarged pancreas. How many times? We've lost doctors in Michigan to pancreatitis and pancreatic cancer, and it's the ones that ate the best. Be on your toes here because it's a new ball game. How well do you detoxify? How well do you detoxify? At a conservative conference, one of the transgenders was putting birth control pills inside the conservatives' coffee. Now, taking my supplements, we're going to show you what to take to try to be ahead of that game. This is important. This is for the people who have eyes to see. December 29, 1939, Columbia scientists reported in the New York Post, all atoms in humans or in steel are found to emit and receive long waves. Everything is a transmitter. You receive and send standing long waves all the time. How hackable are you really? How 5G-ish are we really? Because things are going to get really strange here, because you can be hacked on a frequency, and they knew that back in 1939. And I want you to know, excuse me, that's classified information, and they do not want you knowing that. How much money did we send to the Ukraine this year? How much? This is what you're drinking out of. This is the water pipes in America. You know how many people say, I said, what do you drink? Well, tap water. I drink tap water. The bottled water is just as crummy as tap water. This isn't a water lecture, but they're trying to kill us, and they don't care anything about your health. Take care of your water, that's a whole other subject. That is my estrogen plastic chemical removal. This is what I live on to look healthy eating restaurant food. My color, it looks only because of this. I'm keeping myself running real clean because they're trying to kill us at every turn. That's how you keep the estrogen and the chemicals out of your body. This is a great story from Dr. Jeff.
This is a pretty cool case. This is part of our neurotransmitter profile that we're freshly running at the office as well. And this was a 21-year-old gentleman presenting with anxiety, depression, mood swings, OCD type issues, short-tempered problems. And there's a lot of guys that were running hormonal profiles on that. You were seeing that this is a low testosterone issue even in the early 20s. And I ran a VIP panel with them, the hormones and the neurotransmitter, thinking that I would find issues with testosterone. That wasn't the case. It was low serotonin levels with him, and on top of that, his vitamin D was low as well too. Vitamin D is a precursor to serotonin in the brain, so we bumped up his vitamin D, played some precursors for his serotonin levels, and a lot of his symptoms resolved. On top of running this with other patients and seeing a lot of issues coming back, this is something also I will pair with a gut panel as well too, because the vast majority of your serotonin is produced in your gut and not your brain. So if you got gut issues and your gut health is off, your serotonin will be off as well too. So it was a pretty cool case seeing him turn around thinking it was something else, but until we tested it and seeing what it actually was, was surprising even to myself.
Well, Courtney, this one's for you. 47-year-old female presents with increased weight gain, extreme fatigue. She had a partial hysterectomy due to uterine fibroids. Now, talking about balancing hormones, my gig. Now, here's the thing. When you balance hormones, you improve cardiovascular function, immune healing, vitality, help fight against cancers, sexual function, and protect yourself of autoimmune. Now, to get into hormones and understand them for the docs out there, when you're balancing hormones, and you want to balance them for all those conditions I just mentioned, you want to keep hormones just slightly above midline. That's where you want to keep them. In this female's case, when she came in, she brought her blood work in, and what had happened is she was seeing a functional med doc. And what happened was the functional med doc was pushing the hormones. For whatever reason, she was pushing them. To give you an example, if you look at this, her estradiol was 1,980. That's extremely high. In fact, when she came in, she said, my breasts actually hurt. They feel like they're going to fall off. I even brought Randy in the room to see how high these hormones were. Her DHEA sulfate was 261, that was high on the range on that test, and her testosterone total was 315. The cutoff for that range on the test was 41. So she's hugely above all the ranges where she should be. Now, when you push that estrogen like that, what you're going to do is you're going to accelerate tissue growth. That's a dangerous place to be playing in. You want to keep those hormones balanced. So immediately what we did is put her on the supplement program here. Resveratrol is one of the best things to take down testosterone and DHEA. Usually I use about 1 a day. Indole-3 carbinol for the estrogen, black currant seed for the estrogen, and then also you have to push the conjugation of the hormones through the liver. I clean out the liver by using the Liviplex. Here's what happened when we ran our blood tests. Estradiol now 178, still a little high, but significantly down from where it was. DHEA sulfate, 63.9, a significant change, and testosterone was 11. Now 11, what I'm starting to think is maybe that 11 is that low because there's a little bit of an aromatizing pathway where she's converting testosterone to estrogen also. But significant improvement in her changes, as you can see. Now the next case, Kara, in her case, she had an out-of-control thyroid function. What happened was 28-year-old female presents with hypothyroid, not controlled by medication. Current symptoms are lack of menstrual cycle for 4 years, fatigue, hair loss, and cold extremities. Now, you have to remember, when you're talking about the thyroid, what happens if you don't keep that thyroid balance, you'll lose those cycles too. Now, what does the thyroid protect, or what does it do? Well, we already said cold extremities, recurrent infections, constipation, dry skin, psoriasis, acne, eczema, infertility is a big one, fibrocystic breasts, ovarian cysts, and headaches are big for this. Now, if you look, when she came in, and some people are like this, when they're on medication, their body won't respond. A lot of times because of exogenous estrogens that come from the environment will block up their hormone receptors. Now in some cases you have to use the receptor detox, and I would recommend that, to clean off those hormone receptors before you put in what you're going to put in. Now, I told her to keep her medication the same as it was. We're going to base off that. She was 150, which is extremely high on your TSH. I brought her down first blood work to 7.54, which is a significant change. And now recent blood work, she's 0.45. What we'll do now is we'll adjust those nutrients, do another blood test to get that where I said, right where it needs to be. Now the sweet spot for thyroid that I found out with my daughter, and if you remember past seminars, I have a daughter that was born without a thyroid. The sweet spot for thyroids that I found is right around 1.8 to 2.1. Now, if the symptoms are still persistent, a lot of times I'll take them down to 1.0 and then balance them out. And that's the way I handle that case. She's doing well. Jeff?
These are sneaky, sneaky cases. Anytime you see an elevated calcium level, you definitely don't want to sleep on it. This is something that could be a parathyroid issue, and for the 61-year-old female who was recently in the last few months, this was her case. Some of her symptoms with fatigue, weight gain. Her main issues that we're trying to get to the bottom of is elevated blood pressure that we couldn't get under control, that we're suspecting it was some play with the calcium, as well as body aches too. But we've seen this fumbled, and this was fumbled with 3 endocrinologists in the local area, and we've seen this. I've seen this fumbled at U of M and everything, that they kept playing this off as, no, it's not a problem, it's not a tumor on your parathyroid, and it, you know, you can see the pictures when we sent her down to the Norman Parathyroid Clinic, that yes, she did have tumors on her parathyroid, and it was creating issues. Some other patients we've had in the past that have had these tumors that have gone too long and being missed, what happens is a parathyroid having a tumor on that, it's telling the body that it needs more calcium in the blood, so it's stripping more calcium from your bones, getting in your bloodstream, driving the calcium up. And in some unresolved cases, these are chronic kidney stones with patients. I've had patients with chronic osteoporosis that get in spinal fractures before that was ever caught with them as well too. So this is something, when you see an elevated calcium level, you don't want to sleep on that, and you want to run some further panels to look at the parathyroid hormone level as well as the vitamin D. And if you do suspect something like this, the Norman Parathyroid Clinic has been phenomenal with our patients with these cases.
Imagine your 20-year-old daughter coming home 2 points away from kidney transplant. Michaela was a 20-year-old female that presented with granulomatosis polyangiitis, and she was in stage 4 kidney disease. Patient was told she was 2 points away from being on the kidney transplant list. Current symptoms are daily headaches, vomiting, hearing loss, and increased heart rate. Now, for the docs out there and for the rest to follow along, if you look at this, bun is bilirubin, urea nitrogen. It was 44, which is significantly high. That's usually the first thing to go off when you have a kidney problem in the kidney. Second, to follow it closely, is creatinine. That was 2.37. And then the GFR is where you'll watch how the kidney's doing. If that GFR is dropping, you're going into kidney failure. Hers was 29, very low. For a girl her age, it should be 92. Now remember, this is a disease that normally hits somebody at 40 years old. So we put her on the supplementation. After blood work, nutritional supplementation. Here's what I used over here: Gaminol Forte, Arginex, and Cyzyme KD. What we noticed on her blood work is, look at her bun. Her bun was now 29, 44 to 29, significant change. You want that to be lower. Creatinine you want to be lower, was 2.37, now 1.8. That's a pretty significant change. And the biggest one of all, her GFR went from 29 to 41. And what she had told me was that was the first time in years that her GFR had been above 40. That's a significant change for a 20-year-old. And I imagine she's feeling lots better. Her headaches her vomiting's gone, and her increased heart rate is much better. Jeff?
You know, it's funny, when we start running all these panels, myself, Dr. Gill, Dr. Tent, all start running blood panels on each other. And we're like, crap, we're all messed up ourselves. We're trying to treat patients to tell them what to do, but ours look pretty bad ourselves with certain things. So from the previous lecture, when we were talking about some of our own blood work, my ferritin level was at 641, and I had no symptoms of anything. I was really shocked that was high. I suspect the overuse of vitamin D increased my iron absorption to my liver. I used 2 products and did a medical phlebotomy and dropped it down like that, but this is something I would have never known unless I would have ran that panel on myself. And these panels that were run with the iron and ferritin, it's not uncommon seeing high amounts of iron in the blood from overuse of iron cookware, iron in the tap water, or iron supplementation, and things of that nature. So it's cool just fine-tuning some of these simple things, but just running those panels. This kit has been phenomenal. I cannot brag this kit up anymore, and this is one of my first patients that I really knocked a home run out of the park with. 66-year-old gentleman, type 2 diabetes for 10 years. He was tired of crapping his pants from using metformin. His A1C diabetic marker was at about 7.3, and doing this kit and then doing a maintenance protocol afterwards, we dropped his A1C from 7.3 down to 5.4, and it completely reversed his diabetic issues. I've done this in about 8 patients this last year, so it's been pretty cool. And you know, our VIP panel, diabetic profile, these are simple things, and looking at those markers, adjusting that diet, and doing those shakes, and getting some of those crummy lipid numbers that I've talked about through that NMR panel. This kit works great with as well. So good stuff, and it's still me. This is a great case in talking about, this was part of our genetic heart panel, the cardiac profile. This guy has a history of 4 heart stents, and his numbers really aren't that bad. His total cholesterol is 174. His triglycerides are a bit elevated at 183. His LDL is only at 111. It's really not that bad, but when you break down his LDL in the fractionated form, his LDL particle type is pattern B, which is more the dense kind, and he's got small particle LDL, which will plug you up too. So that's how you really break down if you really need to work on that LDL format there. He's got a few things on top of that. His triglycerides could plug him up. That LDL is the dense type. That LDL particle sizing small. On this profile, his vitamin D was low. His omega fatty acids were in the red, which were deficient, which were contributing to inflammation issues as well. And his genetic heart factor, homocysteine, was at 14. So although his lipid panel doesn't look bad, there's still a lot that he needs to work on. And that cardiac profile is one of the best things and profiles that we're running on our patients at the office right now.
We know, Jeff, thanks for reminding me. We all take care of ourselves here as well. And we, I didn't mention, or none of us mentioned yet, but we also do echocardiograms here. We have a lady that comes in and does echocardiograms. About 6 months ago, she did one on me, and we found that I had a mitral valve regurg, which put me into a cold sweat. So I started taking immediately purified chondroitin sulfate and heavy doses of Cardio Plus. And just last Friday, she re-scanned me, and I said to her, hey, how's my regurg doing? She goes, I actually forgot you had that. So she started looking and looking and looking, and it's actually gone. It's cleared up. So that's just the stuff that we do here at DHS that puts us on the map, a little bit ahead of some others. But I'm telling you, we also have the echocardiograms along with the heart stuff, or along with the blood stuff. Now, my last patient, this is a good clinical pearl here in this one as well. 6-year-old male patient with shortness of breath on activity. He also has genetic history of heart attack. So common sense wise, you're going to run the cardiac profile there and probably the VIP. Patient is an avid runner and a pilot and has no other symptoms. Now this guy is ripped. He's a pilot. They got to stay healthy to fly the friendly skies. And he's in baseball. He does all this stuff. He's probably got maybe a 15% body fat. So he's super duper healthy. But here's the clinical pearl for everybody out there. From 97 to now, I've noticed there's certain people out there when they eat junk, pop, pizza, donuts, crackers, chips, pies, cookies, cakes, buns, rolls, they don't gain weight as fast as the next guy. Now, typically, if you eat that garbage, you put on weight pretty easily. But there's certain people out there, men and women, that if you see them that can eat all this junk and they usually don't put on the weight like typical people do, I'm going to tell you, run the cardiac profile. You're going to see some things like lipoprotein A, homocysteine, fibrinogen, things like that. But in this guy's case, what we did is when we run the profile, the TMAO. Now, TMAO goes high when you eat a lot of red meat, when you eat a lot of dairy, when you eat a lot of eggs. It's produced in the intestines. TMAO will give you cardiovascular disease, but it also can cause sudden death. Now, his was 14.9, significantly high. After we put him on the protocol here, and I'll tell you why I use CGF in a minute, but Cyruta plus 8x pancreatin, we dropped that from 14.9 to 6.5. You see it's coming down to the green. The 16 on the homocysteine is why I use the CGF. I see homocysteine come down really fast with the CGF. That went from 16 to 11. Where I like to see that is about 8. My 93-year-old mother is about 8, and that's where I want to get his eventually. And then you see the others came down. The LP-PLA2 activity, which is inflammation in the endothelial wall of the blood vessel, that came down too. The rest of them, you can see they're all coming down. So this is the protocol that I use to put him back together, and everything's going green. So he's very happy. Randy?
Quest Labs, this is the hours for the Quest people. Now, whatever state, whatever country you live in, if you have a Quest Lab, we can work with you because they work with us worldwide. We get paid nothing from them. This is all legit. So it's a service we provide for the patients. This is their hours that they're here. They have 9,000 Quest diagnostic locations. I hope you enjoyed Dr. Jeff and Dr. Craig. You guys got some smart people here, and I'm impressed what I heard them talk about today. Now, you will never know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory. Now, I am up to my elbows in my friends being widows right now. I cannot believe what I'm seeing. Close friends, church friends, healthy friends, sports friends, not people that live the riotous lifestyle. It's amazing what's happening to people. Don't get behind this because people are alone right now, and it's not fun being alone when you're not old. Now, because of my 42 years, I'm only going to be here Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I'm taking my first real vacation, September 1st to September 19th. Book accordingly. I'm going to visit people out of state that I've never visited in 42 years. Dr. Gill and Dr. Jeff will be available for those days. Remember, you can doctor transfer, use these guys. I'm sharing everybody with everything because these guys are great. I'm getting old. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the fall.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad.
Have a nice day.